How many mistakes can you spot in this thumbnail photo that you clicked on? Now, I wish I could tell you that I staged this just for this video, but in fact, this is a random picture of a rider here in Alabama. And the gear is not the only mistake he's making. He's got a whole host of deadly things going on here. Now, I want to help you prevent yourself from being in this guy's shoes. And it's shoes too. He's not wearing riding boots, I assure you. These are beginner rider habits that you should break before it's too late. So if we haven't met, I'm Justin Barker. I'm a motor officer and accident investigator on a mission to get you home safe on your next ride. That's what this channel is all about. Number one, not in the photo, is parking in neutral. Now, starting your motorcycle in neutral, that's fine. And a lot of times they will teach you to park your bike in neutral so you don't make any mistakes when you first start your bike up. They don't want you to accidentally start your bike up and let the clutch out and lunge forward or something like that.
Clutch, pull the clutch in. Pull the clutch in. Oh God, he's gonna get hurt. He's gonna hit that car. Oh my God.
But now that you've been riding a little while, you don't want to park your bike in neutral because you're not always going to be parked in the most favorable conditions. You may be parked on a slight incline or decline, and the only thing that's holding your bike there is the fact that you're over on your side stand and the bike is in gear. So starting your motorcycle in neutral, that's fine. I actually recommend it, especially if the bike is cold, but parking in neutral is not a great idea. On that same note, but definitely more dangerous, is hanging out in neutral while in traffic. Now, parking in neutral is one thing, but hanging out in traffic and intentionally putting your bike into neutral while you're stopped in heavy traffic is not a good idea, especially if you don't have any cars stacked up behind you, because that approaching car, they may not stop, and you may very quickly become the meat of a cycle sandwich, and that's not where you want to find yourself. So what I recommend you do is keep your left foot down, right foot up. The bike is in gear, your clutch lever is pulled in, your hand's on the throttle, and you know where your friction zone begins. When I'm sitting in traffic, a lot of times I'll let the clutch lever out and feel where the friction zone begins, and I'll pull the clutch lever back in, and I do that, and it just kind of ingrains in me exactly where that friction zone is, and I am ready to maneuver out of the way if I need to. I'm watching my mirrors, I am angled behind the car that I'm stopped behind, and I am ready to take the escape path that I have pre-decided before I got into that position. Now, if you insist on finding neutral while you're stopped in traffic, wait till at least 2 cars get stacked behind you. Why 2 cars? Well, the first car, they may not stop and they may rear end you. That's your biggest threat. The next threat is the car that approaches that one, because that car can easily be pushed into you if it's hit hard enough. It's not as common, but I do work several crashes a year where the car has hit that one and got pushed into the next vehicle, and you still don't want to be in between. So I understand why we do this. Now, the Harley riders do it because the clutch lever is kind of heavy. Those of you who are on sport bikes, being leaned over like that when you're not moving and you're in stop and go traffic, it's not very fun. But be strategic about it. Wait until you get those cars stacked behind you, because you never know who's not paying attention, especially in this day and age when everybody's on their phone. Number 3 piggybacks off of number 2, and we touched on it briefly, but that's not setting yourself up for an escape whenever you stop in traffic. Try and set yourself up to the far left or far right of the vehicle you're stopping behind, not directly behind their license plate. Most license plates are mounted in the center. If you're directly behind that license plate, that is not a good place to be. And when you're approaching the stopped traffic, be trying to make a decision on which path is going to be your widest, best escape path. Maybe it's safer to go between the traffic if someone barrels towards you and doesn't stop than it is to go around to the right, because maybe over here to the right it's a turn lane and you never know who's going to be in that lane. Be thinking about these things because you never know what could happen. Number 4 is something I see riders do quite often as well, and that's not giving enough distance between their bike and the vehicle they're stopping behind. You want to give at least 2 bike lengths so that you have room to work. You have room to make your escape if you need to. If you're lined up directly dead center behind that license plate and you don't have enough room to maneuver around that vehicle, you're in a bad place. Now, that's especially important whenever you're stopping behind big box trucks or semi trucks. You want to give yourself even more distance because they are so wide and have such sharp corners. It's going to be harder to maneuver around those if an emergency happens. Number 5 is something I still see happening all the time, and it's not exactly your fault, especially if you went through the basic rider course with the MSF, and that is duck walking and hovering your feet while you're moving. Duck walking is something that they force you to do in the MSF that would immediately fail you if you were taking police motor training. You can't duck walk your motorcycle at all. That is a failed run. If you put your feet back down, once the motorcycle is moving, you're disqualified from that exercise. They definitely harp on us not putting our feet down, and so every time I see it out in traffic, I almost cringe, because we've had guys that have put their foot down in one of our maneuvers. The motorcycle's moving, so their foot gets sucked up under the saddlebag as the motorcycle is leaning over, and it ends up with a broke ankle or a broke foot, and that's definitely not somewhere you want to find yourself. Duck walking can be a bad idea, especially for those of us who are riding heavier motorcycles like these Harleys or Goldwings or anything like that. As you're walking, you may put too much confidence in the fact that your foot's going to be able to hold you up. And I'm telling you, if you're leaned over a little bit and you're barely moving and that motorcycle starts to go, there's very little that your foot is going to do to help keep you up. You're most likely going to fall over and the foot's going to be under the bike whenever you do. Hovering your feet above the ground, since we mentioned that. So a lot of guys are using their feet as landing gear and they're just hovering their feet above the ground. And this is just a false sense of security, because when you put your feet down, they're getting pulled backwards as soon as you put your feet down. Why do we do this? Well, we do it because we don't feel very stable whenever we start off. So how do we fix this? Well, you need to make sure your bike has some pull to it before you let your foot off the rear brake, and you need to be deeper in that friction zone and get your bike up and going, because if you're just easing out on it, and I know you may be doing this because you're afraid you're going to stall the bike or something, but if you're just easing out and you're trying to walk the bike or hover your feet because you're afraid it's going to stall or something, it's probably because you're doing something wrong. I recommend this. Your right foot is holding yourself in place. The road is not always level. You're going to find yourself on inclines and declines, and you need that rear brake to hold yourself in place. And the reason I recommend using the rear brake instead of trying to hold it with the front brake is because you've got a twist throttle. You're trying to hold yourself with that front brake while manipulating the throttle, because you need some power before you let the clutch lever out. And it can be a little trickier. It can be a little harder to do. Go ahead and have a slight amount of throttle applied. Be letting your clutch lever out and entering that friction zone. And as soon as you let your foot off the rear brake, you should feel the bike moving forward. It's going to move forward, and you're not going to have to worry about duck walking or gliding your feet above the ground, because the bike is ready to go. Number 6 is improper foot placement. This may not apply to you Harley guys as much as it does to the other guys riding sport bikes and bikes with actual foot pegs. But I'm seeing it a lot where riders are not putting their foot in the right position once they get their feet up there. You would think, hey, I can just put my foot anywhere on this foot peg, it should be fine, right? Not exactly, because a lot of people are putting the arch of their foot on their foot pegs and keeping their toes down or toes forward, and this can mess you up, especially if you get anywhere other than a straight line. Whenever you go to shift gears, move your foot up, shift the gear, and put your foot back. Make that a habit. Foot up, shift, foot back. You do not want to find yourself with your toes hanging off the foot pegs whenever you're in a curve. That's a bad situation. I recommend you go ahead and downshift before you approach that curve, and then upshift as you're coming out of the curve, which brings me to my next point, number 7. Shifting in curves. But this is also whenever you turn from one street onto another. Don't shift when you're in the middle of the curve. Removing the power from the bike can mess up the geometry of the bike. Shifting down or up in the middle of the curve can be bad. If you shift down in the middle of the curve and you let your clutch out too quick, you're already going to be leaned over. It could cause your back tire to skid, and that's not a good place for your back tire to be skidding when you're leaned over in a curve. The same goes when you're turning from one street to another. Go ahead and shift down prior to that turn. That way you're not shifting mid-turn, because if you're turning, you could definitely accidentally put your bike in first or a lower gear than preferred and slide that tire, and that's not a good place to be. Even if you're shifting to a higher gear, pulling the clutch lever in, you're removing that power from the bike in the middle of a turn. I see it with new riders all the time, and I can see them getting unstable when they do that. So do try to prevent shifting in curves and shifting whenever you're turning from one street to the other. All right, so let's go back to our original rider, this guy that seems to be a little clueless, wearing no gear in the middle of traffic. Let's go over the things that this guy is doing wrong, because we can learn from his mistakes. If anything at all, he can serve as a very good bad example. Number 1 is he stopped too close to the vehicle that he is directly behind. He has no way to maneuver out of the way in the event the car behind him doesn't stop. Number 2, he doesn't appear to be lined up to the left or to the right of that vehicle that he stopped behind. He needs to have an escape path. You need to choose the one that's wider and be prepared to take that route. Number 3 is his hands are completely off the bars. That bike, it might as well be a rolling chair out there in the middle of traffic, because he is just leaned over and he is completely relaxed out there. And I'm glad that he has got very little stress in his life, but if that car doesn't stop behind him, he is going to have a whole nother level of stress. Number 4 is hanging out in neutral. Now, his bike appears to be running. I can see the headlights illuminated there. The time that it would take him to put his foot up on the peg, put his bike in gear, gear, his hands to the handlebars, pulling the clutch lever in and all that. There's no way he could respond in time to keep himself out of harm's way. Number 5, both feet are down. I recommend having that left foot down, right foot up, covering that rear brake. It's a more defensive position to be in, and you're more likely to be able to be in control and maneuver yourself out of the way of that approaching hazard. As you practice this, it becomes more and more second nature, and you'll find yourself needing to keep both feet down or duck walk less and less. Number 6, I know this is just a snapshot, but it appears that this guy is unaware of his surroundings. We need to stay alert. Keep checking your mirrors until you get a couple of cars stacked behind you, and be ready to maneuver if that car approaching you does not stop. Number 7, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but this guy is wearing absolutely no gear other than a helmet. He has no gloves on, no jacket on, no riding pants on, and no riding boots on. He's probably not even wearing sunscreen. He is definitely not thinking about what could happen. He's not prepared for that gravity enhanced moment. You know, we've all heard the old cliche, dressed for the slide, not for the ride. He's not dressed for the slide. He is dressed for this Alabama heat. There's a gym located near the location where this picture was taken, and I'm almost certain that's where he's going. He's not thinking about what could happen. If he takes that next curve and hits a little patch of gravel, even at a few miles an hour, he's gonna have some terrible road rash. Now, I'm not the gear police, and I'm not saying that you should wear a full race suit to go to the end of your driveway, but you need to consider your normal riding habits, because I know that you know, once you get out there on that bike, you're going to twist into that throttle.
I know you. You know you. And I know you know that I know you.
Many of you have very little self-control once you get on two wheels. Now, I no way endorse wearing gym clothes on your motorcycle. You should never wear this little of protective clothing. You never know what could happen, even in a short ride. I know denim and other things may rip quickly, but at least it's another layer that gets to rip before your skin rips. Honestly, it's more comfortable to keep a riding jacket on, and it's actually much more comfortable to ride, even in the summertime, wearing gear than it is to wear your t-shirt. So dress for the slide, not for the ride. So what is this all about? Why do I keep addressing motorcycle safety? Why did I create this channel in the first place? Well, it's because I know you're valuable and you have a God-given purpose, and I don't want to see your days cut short because of a mistake that I could have helped you prevent. How do I know you're valuable? Because value is not decided by the price tag on an item or what you think an item is worth, but rather what someone is willing to pay for that item. And you, my friend, were bought with a price. Until next time, ride safe, God bless. I'll see you on this next one.